So very common workflow, right? A lot of people are used to working in Hugging Face. We have lots of models implemented there, lots of checkpoints. We've already talked about how to work with the data. What happens if I have a model in Hugging Face and I want to convert that over, port that to CS2? We have a couple different options. The first option is, say we're using a fully custom Hugging Face model, or one that isn't custom, but isn't supported as part of the model zoo. This is always going to be a little bit tricky in case by case, right? Ultimately, we're going to either need to use the CS-Torch Layers API to re-implement the model, or if it's similar to something in the model zoo, we can do what we mentioned before in terms of slotting into the model zoo framework, maybe riffing on a reference implementation, getting things to line up. For instance, I've worked with a client where they were doing something that was essentially GPT-2 with a few added extra elements. And then you can just take the existing implementation, add those bells and whistles, those little tweaks, and be good to go. And we also have access to, say, there are some files in different model family directories, GPT model.py, BERT model.py, that are going to show the sort of under the hood implementations of how we're supporting those models in the model zoo. And we can always take those as inspiration or tweak elements of those to suit our needs. Otherwise, we can use our supported operations and then existing models as reference to modify Hugging Face code and get it CS2 ready. That's if it's fully custom. Case by case, it kind of depends on how complex the thing you're porting is, what operations it's using. If we are using something that is model zoo supported from Hugging Face, life is easy. We're on Easy Street. Essentially, we provide a checkpoint conversion tool to convert between Hugging Face and CS2. Or if you're going, let's say, your model zoo version was upgraded, you can do that checkpoint conversion to the latest release quite easily. Once that's done, we have that checkpoint, we can fine tune it or evaluate it like any other model zoo model. And then, like I said before, we can always reconvert back to Hugging Face for evaluation, or if that's just sort of the implementation of choice for having like it available as reference for checkpoints, then you can totally do that too. In terms of, oh yes. So remember before, I showed this sort of list of a bunch of model families that we support in the model zoo. All of those unbolded names from before are different sort of sub-variations or flavors of those main model types that we support Hugging Face conversions for. If you're familiar with Hugging Face, you don't just have BERT. You have BERT summarization, BERT Q&A, BERT for sequence classification, et cetera, et cetera. And this is basically just a list of all of the versions of those models that we support. Those headless models essentially have lopped off the language modeling head that frequently gets used for training and inference, and is essentially just like the trunk, the backbone of the model. All sorts of available variations here. You don't have to memorize this list or anything. Part of the checkpoint conversion utility is it will just tell you all of the models that it supports and what versions it can translate between at any given time. This is just to help give an impression. In terms of how we actually conduct our checkpoint conversion, I would just say create a new directory, in this case called My Checkpoints on the system. And let's say I have the URL for my Hugging Face. Sorry, lots of talking. Let's say I have the URL for my Hugging Face checkpoint I'm going to convert. I only need two things. I need that PyTorch model.bin or the set of different model files if it's one of those sharded checkpoints. And I need the model config JSON file. Once I've gotten both of those, all I have to do is go into the model zoo, navigate to that convert checkpoint.py script, and then I'm going to specify I want to convert. I specify the supported model type, in this case, GPTJ, specifying I'm converting from the source format of Hugging Face to the target format of CS 2.2, where I'm spitting it out, pointing to the config and then to the model, and then it will just execute. And if I wanted to go from CS back to Hugging Face, I would just flip those source and target format arguments. And that's essentially all there is to it. Relatively straightforward. Perfect. I will hand things over now to my good colleague, Api, to talk about how we do job monitoring and job profiling on the system.